Howdy, folks. Greyhawk4x4 coming at you again, your resident vintage gamer, and it is, once again, we have made it to another Beer 30. Cheers. That is a delicious dessert beer. My lips are all chapped. Oh, man. Even bleeding a little bit, looks like. Just came in from the bitter cold out there. This was the Samuel Smith's Organic Chocolate Stout. I may or may not have talked about this before, but it is fantastic. It is particularly good as a dessert beer, meaning you've already had your meal and you really can't, you don't have room for dessert, you're just too full. However, because this is a chocolate stout, a true chocolate stout, you get your sweetness from the dessert in your dessert beer here. Oh yeah, delicious. 5% alcohol by volume, made by the Tadcaster, I believe, which is Samuel Smith's Brewery and Tadcaster, North Yorks. So, anyway, we have a lot to talk about for this Beer 30. So this may be a long one. Get yourself something to drink, get a snack, whatever. We got a lot of stuff to cover. First off, elephant in the room. Sony has acquired Bungie for, what was it? I've got it written down here. $3.6 billion. So we see that we have all of these buyouts, acquisitions, mergers, whatever, by all these big companies that are now, it looks like they're trying to outdo one another. Excuse me. And this is the latest. Now, this isn't as big as an acquisition as the Microsoft buying out, Activision Blizzard, obviously. Apples and oranges there. However, both are considerable acquisitions. What is ironic about this is that Bungie used to be partnered with Activision, and some time ago, it might have been a couple years ago now, the way time goes, they basically split the blanket with Activision and went their own way. So that's really got to sting, Microsoft, that had Activision, taken care of that relationship with Bungie better, perhaps Bungie would have still been with part of Activision, and they could have kept this from occurring with Sony. However, it has. Now, the other thing that a lot of people aren't talking about is that Sony also acquired Deviation Games, and Deviation Games is working on some secret project, and the co-founders of the company are Call of Duty veterans. They were developers on Call of Duty, on the Call of Duty franchise. So, could they be working on, because now that Deviation is owned by Sony, could they be working on a Call of Duty competitor, a competitive title to compete with Call of Duty? So all these questions are out there, right? Now, what I want to do is I want to address just the bigger scope, the bigger idea here of more of these mega corporations being created. Now, the Federal Trade Commission here in America is going to have something to say about these types of acquisitions. They're most certainly going to be involved with the Microsoft Activision deal. Now, whether or not it gets approved, who knows? We've talked about that before. They may look at this other one. I don't know if they have jurisdiction over this other one. But the reason that that's important is that we need healthy competition in the marketplace to protect us, the consumers. And if you have all these mega corporations constantly merging and acquiring one another and so forth, and then next thing you know, you've got 2 or 3 mega corporations that own everything, there's no longer any real competition, and it doesn't protect the consumer. So that's my bigger concern is let's try and keep this shit to a minimum, please. Let's stop now. That's enough. We don't need any more. Y'all don't need to have any kind of a, dick measuring contest via acquisitions, as to, who can acquire the biggest thing and who can become the biggest company. We don't need all that. That's not necessary. Just make good games, please, and make them at a reasonable price that we can all afford. That's all we ask. So, one interesting note is about Deviation that's owned by Sony. They have recently expanded to Canada. They've opened a studio in Canada, Deviation Canada. So whatever it is that they're working on, they've got to have some capital. They've got to have some investor capital to be able to do those kinds of things, to expand like that when they haven't put anything out and they're working on some secret project. So whether it's Sony, whether it's investor capital from somewhere else, something's coming from Deviation. So anyway, that's the first topic I wanted to talk about. How do you guys feel about the season of acquisitions it seems like that we're going through here? So now, let me get another little taste here while we prepare for this next topic. Okay, now, the other elephant in the room, because if any of you that have been following me for any time, you know that one of the things I do frequently talk about on my channel is American football. I'm a big Raiders fan, and it's obvious now. It has been confirmed by Tom Brady himself. Tom Brady is retiring after 22 years in the NFL. Now, I have ranted about Tom Brady on this channel many times. Now, what I won't do is I'm not going to take anything away from the guy as far as his tenacity and his commitment to the game. I won't take anything. No one can question that. The dude is an incredibly hard worker at being the best he can be. I'll give him that. Now, has he benefited from a number of years of after achieving the quote Tom Brady status of who he is and that he is this elite player and the Patriots are the elite team, when he played for the Patriots? Was he on the favorable end of a lot of calls that really shouldn't have gone his way? And were there questionable things about cheating and all? Yes, there was all that stuff. But I'm able to compartmentalize and say, okay, yeah, he did some shitty things. He got credit for things, meaning that calls went his way that shouldn't have because of who he was and who the Patriots were and all that. But again, the dude played 22 years in professional football, which is unheard of. I mean, that is the amount of damage that they take, the amount of punishment that they take, is ridiculous. And he had a bad injury. He came back from a bad injury. So that takes a certain amount of, tenacity and everything else. So I got to give the guy his due. Is he the greatest quarterback of all time? I think everybody has to say yes, even me. He is the greatest quarterback. He has accomplished more than anybody else in the game of football, as far as I know. Now, there should be some asterisks there and all that, but we'll save that for another day. Let's just say that we've reached an end of an era because, and I wrote them down here, you got Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers, the Manning brothers, Peyton and Eli, and Drew Brees and now Tom Brady, that was all one generation of quarterback in the NFL. And they are all gone now. They've all retired. So now we have the newer generation of, Mahomes and etc. So so it's a passing the torch, it's end of an era, it's all that. So I recognize that, and I don't have to see Tom Brady go to another Super Bowl. I don't have to worry about him getting calls he shouldn't get. I don't have to worry about any of that. It's all done. So, hallelujah. Now, let's move on to some other gaming topics. And when I talk about football, it's a gaming thing. Football is a game. I mean, and of course you have EA Sports, Madden Football, which is a video game, and so it is related. And I'm going to talk about it anyway because it's my channel. So now let's get back to some other gaming stuff. World of Warcraft. Now I couldn't give two shits about World of Warcraft anymore. I've made it very clear that I'm not going to give Blizzard any more of my money as long as Bobby Kotick is there. As soon as Bobby Kotick's gone, we can reevaluate then. However, I think it's important to report to you guys when things happen, even though I'm not going to partake in it. World of Warcraft, it has been announced that at some point here in the future, there's going to be cross-racial, cross-faction, that's the correct term, cross-faction gameplay, meaning you're going to have Horde and Alliance both be able to go into the same dungeons and go into the same raids. I don't have an opinion on it because, again, I'm not playing WoW. I don't plan to play WoW. I did play WoW for the longest time. I couldn't see it then. That's the whole point. I mean, that's why there's world PvP and everything. It's because they're separate factions. So I don't know if this is some type of desperation thing that they're doing to get more people to stop leaving the game by saying whatever we can do. Now we're going to do cross-faction cooperative gameplay in dungeons and raids and stuff. To me, that it's, in my opinion, it's just silly. That defeats the whole purpose of the mechanics of the game, the way it was set up, the lore, everything. Doesn't make any sense. Now, if they do some cinematics and some events that, along with cinematics, to explain how they've come to be cooperative together and so forth and so on, then maybe it would make sense. Now, if they just flip a switch and say, oh, yeah, now, Horde and Alliance can, they're all best buds and stuff, and they can just go raid and, all that, like, the decades of fighting tooth and nail to the death didn't mean anything. They're all kumbaya now, and everything. But if they do it there is a way to do it, but it would take some effort. It'll take some writing and some cinematics and some gameplay mechanics, and yeah, it's going to take some stuff to make that make sense. So how do you guys feel about it? Let me know. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was that, I've talked about this many times, Star Wars Galaxies being my favorite game of all time. The Finalizer server is going strong. It keeps growing. I have seen it over 1,650 people concurrently signed in. And also, separately from that, there is Star Wars Galaxy Restoration 3, which is a entirely different run server, and it's a different rule set because it's part of the combat upgrade in the timeline, as opposed to Finalizer, which is the Star Wars Galaxy emulator, and that is basically vanilla Star Wars Galaxies. Restoration 3 is further down the line in what we called the combat upgrade. It has hit 10,000 accounts created since they launched that. So, but again, they're separate things, completely separate rule sets, separate mechanics, separate servers, separate, the people running them are separate. However, it just shows collectively, and there's other ones out there. There's Star Wars Galaxy's Legends, I think, is the other one. It shows collectively that there is still a heavy appetite for Star Wars Galaxies, the game, the MMO. That there's still a ton of people like me and others like me that still want to play that game, which we consider to be the greatest MMO ever made. And if you never played it and you decide to try it, you might agree, because there are things in that game that now I have one Let's Play on my channel. I plan to do some more. I just got to put some time aside to just do Let's Plays. But the news here is Star Wars Galaxies is, even though it's vaporware, it was abandoned. Players have picked up the mantle and continued on with it. So I'm pretty happy with that. All right, guys, that should do it for this this episode. I'm a little tired. I had a long. I worked my ass off today around the house here. Did a shit ton of errands. Didn't stop all day. It's the first time I've really sat down. So, cheers. Pick you up one of these. These are delicious. If you like chocolate stouts. Perfect dessert beer. Seriously. All right, guys. We'll catch you on the flip side.